honestly, like the first thing that comes to my mind is just, my sisters, the way that they're treated, and it makes me, just think about the times maybe, where I didn't do things that were right, that I could have maybe done a little better. They're just small things. That's what it makes me.
I think of the Me Too movement. I think of all of the attention that it has gained, especially within the last year. Think of a lot of social media efforts to kind of make sexual assault, sexual harassment more, prevalent for people to share their stories and support one another and just kind of open up the eyes of the public to things that were traditionally just not so much spoken about.
When I hear about Me Too, I have depending on the medium that I'm hearing it from, I can have conflicting thoughts on it. Sometimes it affects my perspective by making me realize how different things are for women in some situations, and things that they go through that I can't understand, because as a guy, I don't ever feel threatened by someone doing these things. I'm never fearful in those situations, and it's hard for me to understand what that's like. But then other times with Me Too, I don't like the blurring of the line between harassment and assault, and I think that needs to be made clear by some people that those are not the same thing, because I do think that can hurt the movement. So I think that there's overall positive to bring light to it, but there's also there's some negatives that's been come along with it by people using it for what I don't in a bad way, I'd say.
I think it's a great platform for women, female, even male, whoever's been sexually assaulted, to speak out and perhaps gain a little bit of healing by speaking out. However, I too think that some people take it too far, and they're using it maybe in the wrong way. So I agree. I think it is a serious matter, and I don't think, somebody going on and saying, oh, well, 12 years ago I was smacked on my rear end, and then carry on a big thing. But I don't know, perhaps it is a big thing, but I think it's just going too far sometimes.
So first, in positive aspect of it, they were saying, it opens up the range of sexual assault. So before, if you hear it on TV or you read about it, whatever, it's always you think of the worst things, sexual assault, you think of rape. But now that kind of opens up the full-on spectrum to where you can see that it can be sexual harassment or molestation or whatever, and then how it's used in an abuse of power. Right? So for subordinates, but then again, I won't keep saying the same thing, but I think it's gotten way too popular via social media, and I think a lot of people are trying to come up with something that happened 35 years ago so they can be popular on social media again, which I think just degrades the people who are seriously emotionally hurt by it, or even to the highest other side of the spectrum where it takes away from the cases that should be looked at more.
One of the things that was just resonated with me for the Me Too movement has to do with the larger cases, specifically the Larry Nassar case. He was the doctor that treated the gymnast, and as that unraveled, and it was more and more girls, and it was not just one institution, but you had University of Michigan, you had the Olympic Committee, you had USA Gymnastics. I mean, it was shocking how and it was shocking the amount of victims and how unresponsive these agencies and institutions are, especially for girls that were at the time underage or very young adults. And so there's that, I guess, has been really eye-opening for me from a systemic piece, and looking at sexual assault and sexual trauma, not just from a specific incident, but from what are some of our systems that allow things like this to not just happen once, but perpetually.
Some of my frustrations in regards to, say, the school system isn't particularly with the school system itself, but the lack of awareness, I guess, that students have. I can recall going through college and never once having any sort of knowledge about, if I were in some type of situation that involved sexual assault, what I could do. I think there's not enough awareness for students especially. We have laws, as you have mentioned here in the U.S., that entitle every student equal access to education without any barriers, and it is the responsibility of the schools, if they're federally funded, to provide that equal access. And if something has happened to a student, they shouldn't feel that they need to drop out of school because they don't want to endure that or go through it. It's the school's responsibility to make the accommodations for these students so that they can continue on with their education. It shouldn't be their fault, and they shouldn't feel punished to have to stop their education because they're not aware of it. So I think that there needs to be somehow more awareness on that aspect. And as far as the criminal justice system, my frustrations are the length of time I think that it takes for sexual assault victims to go through with things. So if their case were to even make it to trial, it's ridiculous how long it takes. I mean, at times it can take up to a year or two just to get to trial, and then some of the trials themselves can take 6 months, 12 months just to fully process. So not only is somebody reliving this trauma day after day and session after session throughout this trial, it's lengthy, so there's no time for healing. It shouldn't take as much time as it does. And the only other factor I think, well, probably not the only other, but one that I can think of, is my frustrations for how low conviction rates are. Out of maybe the 20% of cases of sexual assault that actually do get reported to the police, probably less than 10 of them actually go to trial. So the other 90% of that, only small portion, 20% of victims actually reporting, doesn't go to trial, and they don't receive any justice or have any knowledge. And those that do go through trial have to relive their own trauma, and they're usually not very informed throughout the process. They barely know what's going on. They don't even know if their attacker has been arrested until they're basically called into the DA's office and they tell them, hey, we're going to go to trial. And I think there's a lot of areas where things could be improved.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have like a ton of knowledge on the justice system, but from a personal perspective, I've had a few incidents. I don't know why. I answered the question the way that I did it earlier in terms of not feeling threatened ever. Because as an adult, as like a 22-year-old, something happened with me where I was sexually assaulted, and there's like this, I feel like this immediate need to be like, well, the person tried to do it, and like I could fight him off because I was like big and strong enough, but it's still like a scary thing. And I sought a lawyer when that happened. It actually happened when I was in treatment for something related to trauma that I had been through when I was younger. And so, when I talked to the lawyer, who's a very competent lawyer, and he described what I had to go through in order to fight this, in order to win something, in order to do anything with this, it was really difficult. I mean, it was difficult. Like my parents had this perspective of like, why did we pay this hospital like all this money, and like, and it was just a lot of pressure from all over the place. But I decided not to do anything with it, even though, I felt like I could. The guy was very confident that we'd win, but he just, but every time he'd say I'm confident that we'd win, he'd explain how long it was and how much would be involved in it. And it was really discouraging to know, that I was going to be up there, and that I was going to basically be called like a liar, and they were going to bring up my past and my other things that I'd been through in order to make it seem like I was kind of crazy already. And the person was in an authority position, so there's all sorts of scary stuff that happened with that. And yeah, looking back on it, I don't know if I made the right decision or not, but I'm happy with the decision I chose.
Like I said, I've been to enough cases myself where not only are they super long and drawn out, but like Shane was talking about how everyone has the right to like a good defense, but they like treat these people like they're the criminal, or it's pretty bad when the ones that I've gone to, and something has to change there, because I don't know what the answer is either, but it was pretty horrific what those types of attorneys can do. But
how we, as a society, the gender labels that we put on both sexes. I think we as a society often excuse inappropriate behavior as men will be men or boys will be boys, or it's something that's like outside of the control of men, and I think that the bar is often very low for men. I also think that when men are the victims of sexual assault, as a society, we place labels on that are often inappropriate. And I think for women, or for girls, I mean, as a society, I feel like we generally objectify women and girls in a way that makes their consent seem less than. We also often take away the voice of women and girls, so it's teaching to be polite instead of assertive, and things of that nature. So if I was in a position of power, I would balance out a lot of our assigned gender roles and what we place on both sexes.